In this section, we're going to learn how to display images inside of our application. And we're going to start by displaying images that come directly from the Portable Class Library. So inside of the Portable Class Library, you can have images that are going to be used inside of the application. And while it is always best to have the icons and the images be created per platform, in some scenarios you could also require an image directly into the PCL, and so in this lecture we're going to learn how to use those images. So what it is a good practice for you to do is to create a new folder inside of your Portable Class Library that is going to act as a folder for all of the assets. So inside of the Solution Explorer, you can right-click your Portable Class Library, select Add, select New Folder, and name this new folder Assets. And then inside of the Assets folder is where you may have eventually images and videos, maybe even sounds. And so it is also a good idea or a good practice for you to add another folder inside of this folder that is going to be called Images. And it is inside of this folder where you want to add the images that you're going to be using inside of the application. So I am going to navigate to my File Explorer to drag one of the images that I'm going to be using to this new folder. So here in my desktop, I have the image that I want to use inside of the main page, or what is actually the login page, as the icon for the application. This icon is also in the resources for the lecture in case you want to download it, and all you have to do is drag it to the new images folder that we had just created in Visual Studio. Once in Visual Studio, once the image has been added to the folder, you have to select it and change its build action from content to embedded resource. This is important because now the application is going to know that this file is going to act as an embedded resource, so it's going to change the way it is going to be added inside of the application, so it is always present. And with that image already added, the next thing is to define an image inside of the SAML for the page that we want, in this case the main page, which is the login page, to which later we will assign a source that is going to be pointing to this new image. So let's define that image above the first entry, and the SAML element that we want is precisely called image. And this new image of course has to have a name, because the source is going to be set from C#, at least in the case of the images that we are going to be adding directly from the PCL. So this can be icon image, and another important property that you should set on any image is its aspect. The aspect is going to set how the image is going to be drawn inside of its container, the element itself. And so we have three options. One, which is aspect fill. This aspect fill is going to maintain the image aspect, meaning it's not going to be distorted, but it's going to fill the entire element. Aspect fit is also going to maintain the same aspect, the image is not going to be distorted, but it may not fill the entire element because it's just going to fit until it can. And finally, the fill option is going to use or fill the entire element even if it requires the image to be distorted. It's not going to have the same aspect. In here, what I want to set is aspect fit. So the image is not distorted and we always see the entire image. I also want the horizontal options to be fill and expand, and I want to set some margin. No margin to the left, no margin to the top, no margin to the right, but I do want a margin to the bottom of maybe 50 pixels. And so we now have the definition of the image. The next step is the most important step. We have to navigate to the C# file for this SAML definition, which in this case is mainpage.saml.cs, and in the constructor is where we want to set the source for the image. And I do it in the constructor because it means that as soon as the page is created, it will already have the source for its images. Now, right after the initialize component call, we have to define a variable that when setting the source is going to be very important. And this variable, I'm going to call it assembly. And the assembly is going to be of type main page. But we do want to get the type of the main page. Not just an object of type main page, but the actual type. And we'll take a look at why we need an assembly when we set the source for the images. Right now, to get the type of a class, we have to use type of and just pass the type, which in this case is main page. And now the assembly variable contains the type of the main page. It's not an object of type main page, it contains the type itself. If you hover over the name of this variable, you will see that the type is type. So that's exactly what we needed. And so to set the source, we need to access the image, which in this case is icon image, and its source property. And assign it to image source dot from resource. So the from resource is a static method from the image source class that is going to get a resource available to the application, and it is going to use it as a source for the image, so the image is actually being displayed. And this first is going to require the string of the resource. And to get the resource, we have to write something similar to a namespace. The resource for the image is going to be very similar to how a namespace is going to be created. So I'm going to expand the assets and the images folder to take a better look. And what I want to write first is the name of the project, which in this case is the same as the namespace that we have. Then dot and the name of the folder inside of this namespace or inside of the project, which is assets. Dot images, which is the next folder. Dot plain dot png, which is the name of the file itself. And then this from resource method is going to require a source assembly. The source assembly in which we're going to search for this image. And so we're going to pass the assembly variable that we had just created. And that's it. So we have added the resource to a folder inside of the portable class library. We have defined an image in SAML, and we have set the source from the constructor of the main page. In this case, the main page. You can do this from any page. So let's test this out. And I have here the application running on Android, and notice that we have already displayed the image. Now, it may be a little bit bigger than it should, but this is what I set. I set the image to have a horizontal options of fill and expand, so it's using all of the available space. And because this is a squared image, that same available space is being used in a vertical way as well. And so, what I can do to solve this is head back to the SAML and restrict the height of the image. So I am going to come to the definition of the image, and I'm going to set the height request to be 150. And let's try this out one more time to check out how this changes what we have been seeing. So here the application launches, and we see that it is now smaller. So it looks better. Maybe you want to change it a little bit more, but right now we have already learned how to display an image that is directly referenced from the PCL project into our application. In the next lecture, we're going to learn how to create platform-specific images, meaning that we will learn the sizes that we will be using for Android and for iOS. So we can later use images inside of our application, but that come from platform-specific resources. This way, we can define images that look better on the corresponding screens and the corresponding platforms. But before, let me go ahead and test this on iOS as well, so you can see that this will also work on iOS. So now I'm going to run on an iOS simulator and demonstrate that the same resource from the portable class library is going to be used on both Android and iOS. So here the application is launching on an iPhone 6 Plus simulator, and as soon as it launches, you can see the same icon on the same position with the same height and the same aspect ratio as you did on Android, when this resource comes directly from a shared project. This didn't have to be added directly to the iOS project and the Android project. It comes from the PCL and it's being correctly referenced inside of Android and iOS.